If you enjoy this show and you would like to give us a chizuk and an encouragement to continue, please click under the show in the show notes, support the show. Thank you, and Yashikoyach. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes in his Igris Kodesh, because Lia'flia'er, the first time that he heard a Maimer, a Torah, from the Elter Zayda, and he heard about this Inyan of Rebbe and Chassidus, he was very nispal, and he right away went to Liozna. When he came to Liozna, he was ready to go into Yechidus right away. But the Zikna Chassidim explained to him that in order to be able to go into Yechidus by the Rebbe, you need a Hachana. But Rabbi Kusiyel, since his heart was a flame fire, he wasn't ready to listen at all to what they were saying, and he insisted that they should let him enter to the Rebbe to Yechidus. But they didn't let him. So since they didn't let him, he climbed on the wall and he jumped in through the window into the attic of the house. That's where the Alter Rebbe was. And he cried and cried out from the depth of his heart, Rebbe, hakar up my linke Zait. Cut off my left side, meaning where the Yetzer Hara is. And then the Alter Rebbe answered, Rebbeinu shel Olam. It says, Ve'ato mechayes kulam. And Rebbe Kusiyel left the Alter Rebbe's room with a great simcha, and he said that the Rebbe was mamshich chayus into him. And this is the truth, writes the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe was mamshich into Rebbe Kusiyel chayus. But the Zayda gave it to him as a reaction for the cry out from the depth of his heart, which was a makif dike feeling. B'midah she'adam moeded, ba moeded in loy. With the measurement that a person measures, that's how they give him from Shemayim. Reb Moshe Vilenker was misyagea for 3 years in Hachana to Yechidus. And that's why his Yechidus was completely different, and the answer was different. However, when Rabbi Kusiyel climbs on the walls, on smooth walls, and jumps through the window, then his Yechidus is a makif dike Yechidus, and the answer is a makif dike, and the whole entire avodah is b'derech makif. Makif and Pnimi is, as it says, L'reach shmonecha toivim, shemen turok shemecha. It says that Chazal say that all the mitzvahs that the Avis did were like reichos, were smells. However, us, the mitzvahs that we do, shemen turok shemecha, is like the actual oil, like something that could be poured from one kli to another kli. Smell and oil is makif and pnimi. The avodah of Rabbi Kusiyel, even though it penetrated his pnimius, and the Sefer Imre Bina, the Mittel Rebbe wrote for Rabbi Kusiyel Lia'flia'er, nevertheless, his avodah was considered to be b'derech makif. By Rabbi Kusiyel, he had a saying where he used to say, the chassid ran away, or the chassid came back. When he was in a matzav of the chassid ran away, he was very sad, and he will daven very quickly from the siddur, and he will point with his finger word by word from the siddur. Then when he was in a matzav of the chassid came, then he would shine, and he will burst out in a dance, and daven with his lavos. There were times by Rabbi Kusiyel Lia'flia'er, he was in a state of when the chassid is here, the chassid came, and he would daven all 3 davenings, Shachris, Mincha, Ma'ariv, one after the other. There wasn't any time between them. For whole entire days, he didn't taste anything. And he said that the Rebbe benched me with Arichas Yamim, and therefore, I need to be able to know how to live and be healthy without eating. This is the Seder of a Makif Dike Chassid. At a certain Farbrengen, the Frierdiker Rebbe related, in the olden times, we saw how Chassidim, Baalei Avodah, had more atzlacha than Chassidim, which are called Baalei Haskala. When the Chassid Rabbi Kusiyel Lia'flia'er came to Liozna for the first time in the summer of Tov Kuf Nun Vav, he climbed at the window of the room of the Alter Rebbe, and he called out, Rebbe, cut off my left side. This is where my Yetzer Hara is. I can't make it with him. So the Rebbe hinted with his hands that he should come down from the window. And the Rebbe then was sitting, wearing the tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam. The Alter Rebbe leaned on his hands and he said, Rebbeinu shel Olam. It says, Ve'ato mechayes kulam. Give him chayus. This answer of the Alter Rebbe was in a way of haka'ah, of hitting. Like a makif hits the pnimi. At another Farbrengen, the Frierdiker Rebbe related that since the time that Rabbi Kusiyel got the bracha from the Alter Rebbe of Ve'ato mechayes kulam, and he gave him chayus, Rabbi Kusiyel started to live, to have a lot of chayus. And from that chayus, he reached being able to understand the deepest inyanim Chassidus. However, that, understanding the deepest inyanim Chassidus, he didn't reach right away. That actually took a few years. This happened in the days of the Mittel Rebbe. But the chayus he got right away. That chayus was in a way of a gilui oyer. He would have a shine, a gilui oyer leiki mamish. When he had that revelation, that gilui oyer, Rabbi Kusiyel will become a different person. And he would say with a niggin, we need to go on a tencel. We have to start dancing. And anybody who he met at that moment that he had that revelation had to dance with him. And if not, Rabbi Kusiyel might have hit him with a stick. Once when he was in the city of Borisov, says the Fidik Rebbe, Rabbi Kusiyel was walking down the street, and then suddenly he got this big esoidus, this shine, and he said, we need to go in a mochel and a tanz. And the person who passed by was the postman, the guy who's delivering the mail. So he grabbed him and he danced with him. In Inyane Ha'olam, Rabbi Kusiyel had a very simple Havana, but his Havana in Inyane Chassidus kept growing bigger and bigger. The Havana of Rabbi Kusiyel in Inyane Chassidus came only after a few years, and even then it was a result of a Gilui Melamayla. The Tzemach Tzedek wanted to be Malbish Rabbi Kusiyel and Levushim, so he told him to learn the Sefer Kav HaYashar and Chumash with Rashi, and that did not come easy to him. And the story of how Rabbi Kusiyel started to understand Chassidus, the Fidik Rebbe related in a letter in Igros Kodesh. And he writes like this: in the days of the Mittler Rebbe, the idea of Chassidus was very much promoted by the Jungelite. And after a few years, it became a large amount of maskilim in Chassidus, and many of them became mashpim and melamdim in different shtetelach in the whole country. And in the city of Liapli lived one of the Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe, which was a storekeeper who sold salt, and his name was Rabbi Kusiyel. And he was one of the famous Oivdim. However, his hasaga in Torah in general and in Chassidus Bifrat was very limited. Once, one of the Jungelite, which was a mashpia, passed through Liapli, and he spent over there a week. And every day of that week that he spent in Liapli, he chazered a maimer from the Mittler Rebbe Baal Peh. In these ma'amorim, the Mittler Rebbe explained very deep in Yonim. Some of those in Yonim were explaining what it says, the Pnimius Abba is Pnimius Atik. This young man was very talented in Haskalah and Hasaga, and he was a very good speaker. And the ma'amorim that he said were very gishmak and clear, and he made a big reishim on everybody. However, the Chassid Rabbi Kusiyel, which did not have a very great mind, did not understand the ma'amorim. That touched him very much, and he became depressed because of it. As a result from that, he looked very down on himself, and he started to call himself names and put himself down. Years afterwards, when Rabbi Kusiyel related all of that to the Chassid Reb Shmuel Ber Borisover, he told him, think about it. I was then 40 years old, and I already went to the Alter Rebbe for 15 years. Throughout that whole time, I learned Chassidus based on my level. And here comes this new phenomenon. There comes a younger man, mamash a little chick, and he's chazering the ma'amarim of the Rebbe with chayus, and I'm listening, and I don't understand. And I felt that these things are very deep, wonderful in Yanim, but I don't understand anything. Every day, I was hearing this chazara from the younger man, and I didn't understand. And each ma'amar that he said made me even more depressed. I felt like I was being crushed in a crusher. And I called myself all different types of names to put myself down. And this tremendous fire of desire was lit up within me to know this ma'amarim and to understand them. So I asked this younger man that he should chazer this ma'amarim to me again and again. And he tried to explain them to me. However, my head was like a clog of wood, and my mind was blocked from being able to understand his explanations. And I held this younger man in my town for 3 weeks. During those times, I left my store, I let my family run it, and day and night I sat down with this younger man to try to understand this ma'amarim. But to my misfortune, I couldn't. So eventually the younger man went away, and I stayed back home like a ship in the middle of the sea. I fasted, I cried a lot, sang Tehillim, but nothing helped, until I decided that I'm going to go to Lubavitch. When I came to Lubavitch, I saw that during the 9 months that passed since last time I was in Lubavitch, became a whole new world over there. About 50, 60 young Galite sitting every day for many, many hours learning Chassidus, chazering in the Ma'amorim, explaining Chassidus to each other, was something that I didn't see before. I came to Lubavitch on Wednesday, and before Kabbalah's Shabbos, 2 days later, the Rebbe said a Maimer. On Shabbos before Mincha, the Rebbe said a beer on the Maimer. The Maimer I understood, and I even knew some of it Baal Peh. But the beer I didn't understand. And then to my surprise, I saw that the Jungelite understood also the beer. I was very sad because of that I didn't understand the beer. And that whole entire night, Motzei Shabbos, I cried from the depth of my heart, and I fasted the whole entire next day. On Monday, I went into Yechidus to the Rebbe, and I told the Rebbe everything that happened to me in my home and here. And the Rebbe told me, there's nothing that could stand and stop a strong will. Ein davar ha'omed b'fnei ha'ratzain. And the Rebbe explained, even though ratzain, will, is also a koyach of the nefesh, and it's not the etzem ha-nefesh. However, the ratzain has a koyach to turn the nefesh, that to reveal within yourself atzmi zdike giluyim, and to open up essential koychos and chushim, talents and senses. And especially the ratzain could have an effect on the powers which are lower than ratzain, like seichel and midos. And when somebody really wants, also his chushim, his senses, brighten. When I heard from the Rebbe that it's only depended on my will, so I decided to stay in Lubavitch until I will start understanding Chassidus. I sent a message to my family through people who are traveling to Lia'pli that I'm going to stay in Lubavitch for a while, and they should run the store on their own. And for the next 4 months, I was misyageya b'yigia atzuma, to get myself used to think one inyan for a few hours, and to chazer each inyan tens of times. The younger man, Ephraim from Smilian, did me a big favor that he would chazer with me the ma'amorim a few times, one after the other, until I managed to be misamek in their understanding. Most of the time, I would close myself in a basement that was under the big shul, or on top of the ceiling that was under the roof of the shul. And on the following Tishrei, I felt like a new creation. And thank God, I washed out the pot, and I became a Kli LeKabbalah, and that's when I traveled home. And another Farbrengen, the Frierdiker Rebbe related, I heard from my father, the Rebbe Rashab, that the Chassid Reb Shmuel Beber Rizaver told him that the Chassid Reb Kusiyel used to come to him, wearing a fur coat and a stick in his hand. He would put the stick on the table, and he would tell him, Shmuel Ber, tell me what is not clear to me. Meaning, tell me which inyanim Chassidus I'm struggling to understand. And to just give him some sort of a line to get rid of him, that was not an option. Rabbi Kusiel really seriously expected Rabbi Shmuel Ber that he should guess which inyanim Chassidus he is unclear with. So Rabbi Shmuel Ber used to try a few different inyanim until he will guess the right one. And he would tell him, Bispilus, yes, that's the right one. No, so could you explain that to me? And Shmuel Ber added that the questions of Rabbi Kusiel were very sharp, and they were at the deepest in Yom Chassidus. Another thing the Frierdiker Rebbe related, that I heard from my father, the Rebbe Rashab, that he heard from Rabbi Shmuel Beber Isaver, that the Chassid Rabbi Kusiyel Lia'pli'er stayed away and didn't like divrei tzachus, jokes. And whenever you spoke to him, you had to be very careful in what you say. Because once somebody told him a certain gleichwertel, a certain joke, and Rabbi Kusiel reacted with not happy face. He's joking? I heard myself from the Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe, that somebody who jokes around, he's dealing with shadim. He has a asik with shadim. Let the shadim take him. And that person actually went mentally ill. And nothing that the doctors tried helped. At another Farbrengen, the Frierdiker Rebbe related, that my father said, the Chassid Rabbi Kusiyel Lia'pli'er was one of the Chassidim that loy noga bahem atzimtzum in anhaga. Meaning they stayed in the same style from before the arrest of the Alter Rebbe in Peterburg. And Rabbi Kusiel had a mysterious nefesh b'poyel for darkei Chassidus. Despite that, says the Frierdiker Rebbe, Rabbi Kusiel wasn't very much chashuv in the eyes of the Chassidim. That is because he reached his madrega because of a bracha from the Rebbe and not as a result of his own avodah. Also in his avodah, Rabbi Kusiel was noyeg not in an organized way. For example, he will not eat for a few days, and then he will eat, after a few days of not eating, he will eat a lot of bread with pepper, etc. Things were not organized. At another place, the Frierdiker Rebbe said that the Alter Rebbe was mechadesh, that the most simple one, the Pashut Shebapshutim, could become the Godel Shebagdolim. And the raya for that is the Chassid Rabbi Kusiyel Lia'pli'er. The Rebbe Maharash related that the Mittel Rebbe divided his Chassidim, the Maskilim and the Oivdim, to a few subgroups. And each one of those groups, he wrote special ma'amorim for them. And for the highest type of maskilim, he wrote the Sefer Imre Bina. Once, the Rebbe Rashab asked the Rebbe Maharash a certain shaila in Imre Bina, and the Rebbe Maharash answered him. And then he told him, the Sefer Imre Bina, my Zayde, the Mittel Rebbe wrote for the Chassid Rabbi Kusiyel Lia'pli'er. He had a heart full of regesh, and he would daven with a good Yisodidus. After my Zayda, the Mittler Rebbe, came back from Russia and he settled in Lubavitch, he started to be misasik with the Yungalite in learning of Chassidus, and Rebbe Kusiel was jealous of the Yungalite, and he also wanted to understand. And then he was Misyageya with a Yegiya Atzuma until he came to understanding of the deepest inyanim. And the Rebbe Maharash continued, once I struggled understanding a certain inyan in Imre Vino. I was Misyageya on that. I even went into Yechidus by my father, the Tzemach Tzedek, to ask him my questions. So my father told me, now in Lubavitch, we have Rebbe Lia'flia'er. And he told me a lot about him. And amongst the things that he told me about him, he said that the Mittler Rebbe wrote Imre Bina for him. And my father, the Tzemach Tzedek, ended, ask him, and come and tell me what he told you about Imre Bina, about your questions. And after he explains it to you, then I will answer you also. Kusiel davened ba'arichus, he davened very long. So I asked him, Misharis, Yosef Mordechai, that when Rebbe Kusiel finishes his davening, he should let me know. So eventually, Rebbe Yosef Mordechai came to let me know that Rebbe Kusiel finished davening. So I went to the shul, and I met Rebbe Kusiel, and I asked him my questions in Imre Bina. So Rebbe Kusiel went deep in thought for a long while. Then he told me, I am a storekeeper. The way it works with a storekeeper is that when they ask him for schoira, when they ask him for merchandise, and he has merchandise to give, first he takes the payment, and then he gives them merchandise. The merchandise I have, first pay me, and then I'll give it to you. So I asked him, what's the price? So he told me the price is chazer to me, the mimer that was said on Shabbos, and explain me the parts in the mimer that I don't understand. And whatever you will not understand, you will ask your father, the Rebbe Tzemach Tzedek. That's the price. So I agreed. And then Rebbe Kusiel answered me my shaylas in Imre Bina in a very organized and a gishmaki way, to an extent that I couldn't believe what my ears were hearing. A person which was considered to be average in terms of brains when it came to Nigla the Torah, but in the deepest inyanim of Kabbalah and Chassidus, he spoke with such depth and archava. When I came back to my father and I repeated Rebbe Kusiel's explanations to my father told me, the Chassid Rebbe Lia'flia'er, he is a living example to what Chazal say, Yogata u'matzasa. He was very much Misyagea, and he also found a lot. In the evening, Rebbe Kusiel came back to me that I should pay him for the merchandise as we made up, and I should chazer the mimer to him. I chazer the mimer to him, and he listened very intensely, and it was a scene to see how an old chassid is hearing chazara, and all of the limbs of his body were involved in the listening. And then he asked me that I should have rachmanis on him, and tomorrow early morning I should chazer the mimer to him again. So I promised, and I did that again tomorrow morning. And only then, after I chazer the mimer twice to him, he started to ask me all the shilas that he has in the mimer. Most of the shilas, I actually had to ask my father for the answer. And this was a week of pleasure for me in shilas and tshuvas from Rebbe Kusiel to my father and back. From then on, whenever Rebbe Kusiel would come to Lubavitch, I used to have much pleasure spending time with him. The Fidik Rebbe related that after the Tzemach Tzedek was in Stalik, they didn't tell about it to Rebbe Kusiel for a half a year. But then a half a year later, when he found out about it, he started to scream, "Fools!" He spoke in a very simple way, says the Fidik Rebbe. "Fools! Why did you let the Rebbe be Mistalik? Bury the Sifrei Torah! Bury yourselves!" He broke all the window shields, and he went by foot to Lubavitch. When he came to Lubavitch, he said, "I'm not going to do anything, not daven, anything. First, I want to hear what the Rebbe will tell me." So he right away went to the oil, and he was mishtateach by the oil for the whole entire day. In the end, they took him out of there when he was in a faint. And when he woke up from his faint, he said, "We need to dance." Afterwards, Rebbe Kusiel called over the sons of the Tzemach Tzedek, and he told them, "Come and hear a Maimer Chassidus that your father said." When he was then in Lubavitch, Rebbe Kusiel was also busy choosing for himself a new Rebbe. At the end, he told the Rebbe Maharash, "Until today, to me you I refer to you in such a way, not as a Rebbe. From now, you're going to be my Rebbe. Put on your hat and say Chassidus." At another time, the Fidik Rebbe related, Rebbe Kusiel did business with honesty. Once, a guy came to his store, and he bought salt from him. After the guy left the store, Rebbe Kusiel realized that the guy made a mistake in a cheshbon, and he gave him a few pennies more than the price. So right away, Rebbe Kusiel started to research, to investigate, where does this guy live, until he found out that he lives at a certain village. So Rebbe Kusiel went for many kilometers all the way to that village to give him back those few pennies. When the Alter Rebbe heard about it, he said, for such Kiddush Hashem, you are zeiche to have grandchildren that will be great gvirim. That's how it was. The famous banker, Mr. Slavai, was the grandchild of it, because at another time the Fidik Rebbe related that the Alter Rebbe benched Rabbi Kusiyel with three things: Arichus Yamim, children, and wealth. And Rabbi Kusiyel would say that he exchanged the wealth of money with wealth in Da'as. At another opportunity, the Fidik Rebbe related that the Alter Rebbe wanted to bench Rabbi Kusiyel Lia'flia'er with wealth, but he refused. So the Rebbe benched his son and his grandson with Ashirus, with wealth. And that's how it was. They became very wealthy. And he gave a bracha to Rabbi Kusiyel to have Arichus Yamim. So Rabbi Kusiyel answered, but not Puyir Ishayarim. I don't want to have years of a guy, empty years. That those years are Enayim Lohem V'lo Yiru, Oznaim Lohem V'lo Yishmo. I want godliness. Fidik Rebbe writes in a letter that the Chassid Rabbi Kusiyel remembered everything that he saw from the first day that he came to Liyazna. And he would say, every week I go into Yechidus to whichever Rebbe I want in my thought, by Machshava. Because he remembered all the times that he was in Yechidus by the Alter Rebbe, the Mittel Rebbe, and by the Tzemach Tzedek. Rabbi Kusiyel got a bracha from the Alter Rebbe for Arichus Yamim, and he lived close to 100 years.